Okay, this is my reading response one for our first week here, right outside of the introduction week. Number one, two things or concept theories, ideas that I learned from this week's content. The first one I want to talk about is from what's the name of the book? Reality is Broken, right? McGonagall's Reality is Broken, where she talks about there's the excerpt from Herodotus, which is him talking about this group of people that used games as a way of surviving a famine, right? Where they would abstain from playing games with each other one day and then abstain from food the next day. And it kind of is this driving force of like something to look forward to the next day in this really difficult time, right? I thought that was really cool. Another thing I learned from this week's content, um, I think just the importance of genre in a lot of ways, right? And this is not just in games, not just in gaming, but how important genre is as a sorting tool. I think it's one of those things that we take for granted. The human's ability to sort things into groups so that later on we can come back to them or we can use them to find other things that we need or enjoy. I think that was just it was just reiterated to me, and I think that was an important part of this week for me. What is one thing that surprised you from this week's content and why? I think what's the name of the online article? Sorry, I'm just Greitmeyer, 2022, the study that found um, that there is a small or medium. They in the conclusion they talked about a small or medium-sized link between violent video games and a decrease in pro-social behavior, right, and aggression. It surprised me because I did a study on this in school, in high school, because I love video games, right? Um, and part of that was me wanting to prove I was a student. I was a high school student. I wasn't good at research yet. You don't prove things. But wanting to show that there isn't a link, and I actually was able to do that because of the variable that I tested for, which is the link between violence in video games or difficulty of video games. And what I did is I took uh, skill-based matchmaking, right, and I was able to track skill-based matchmaking across multiple games, and then also have them play strategy games that are non-violent, that were too difficult for them or easy for them, and we tracked that, right? And found that the link was similar or exactly the same between difficulty in video games across genre. Anyway, and what's one thing that you still have questions about? And it's actually that I want to go back and read the study. I wasn't able to see anything where they talked about um, the variable of difficulty because I found that once again difficulty is a much bigger indicator of um, increase in aggression. In especially this was my study was done specifically for teens, but increase in aggression was an indicator or a variable that affected it more was difficulty. Right. I'd like to go back and I want to read that study again and see what they have to say about that. And reflect on your own experience with gaming and video games. What is one way in which this week content connects to you to your personal experiences and perspectives? Um, hmm. Gaming to me has become such an escape from not escape from reality. I don't think I've used it as that. It's been escape from things that are difficult for me on like not on a personal level as like as a structural thing for me, right? I I grew up playing football and basketball and a couple other sports, and I'm very competitive, right? And I don't like often that I'm very competitive, and video games have been a way for me to be competitive still, right? I can play. I like playing Rocket League a lot. I can play Fortnite with my wife, and we get to be competitive. I get to have this place where I can put that energy, and it doesn't leak into a different part of my life. I don't want to be competitive all the time. I don't want to argue all the time. I like it's just not the kind of person I want to be, and this allows me to not have that in those parts of my life. And then also it has helped me. I love reading, okay, but I really struggle reading because I have ADHD, and I have to reread the same thing a lot of times in order to retain it. Um, And video games have been a way for me to interact with stories that I wouldn't have been able to interact with otherwise, right? I loved reading Lord of the Rings growing up because the way that Tolkien writes is really good for an ADHD brain. I don't I wonder if other people have found that because he goes on tangents and tangents that I want to follow. And so video games have given me a way to explore worlds and explore stories that way and go on tangents, right? And retain the information that I'm wanting to seek. Anyway, this video went so long. Wow.